Planning Board to reject any proposal that will further the gun culture as part of the future for Kingston. Rabbi Yael Romer, Congregation of Manuel.
Thank you, Mr. Duker. Jennifer Schwartz-Berkey.
Good evening. Thanks for calling this hearing.
And you're
Jennifer
from Holmes
Schwartz,
Street.
Jennifer Schwartz-Berkey, 35 Holmes Street. As an Ulster County legislator-elect for Kingston, New York, a parent in the Kingston City Schools, and a professional urban planner and resident, of course, I've heard from many people who are concerned about the location of the shooting range. I just want to say, for the record, that I support the idea of responsible gun ownership, and I believe that, and I'm not opposed to the appropriate location for a shooting range, such as the 30,000 square foot indoor shooting range that was approved for Saugerties last year by the planning board there. However, I want to talk to you as a planner about zoning and our comprehensive plan that's about to be approved. Beginning with zoning, I think we need to re-examine our zoning to determine what aspects are prohibitive and permissive. It's a mixture, and you have to carefully, very carefully interpret it. The reason is that our city law actually prohibits the discharge of firearms. No person other than self-defense or in the discharge of official duties shall discharge any species of firearm within the city limits of the city of Kingston, New York. You have to look at that in relation to the zoning, and you have to really consider whether or not you are interpreting the zoning to allow this as of right, which means it would have to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Without such clarity, you really need to consider that because the taxpayers would be exposed to litigation otherwise. So, in referring to the Zoning Board of Appeals, one of the things we learned last Friday in visiting the planning office is that the application is going to be amended and the shooting range will be a membership organization. In our zoning, as detailed in section 405-10, section B6, membership organizations are subject to special permit and shall not be located near than 50 feet to any street or property line. An area variance would be required to allow this, but in New York State, self-created difficulties are not grounds for an area variance. The property owner is not compelled to turn this location into a shooting range, and as it is proposed, it is not eligible for a special permit with an area variance under our zoning. So I just recommend that you be very careful in looking at that and that the Zoning Board of Appeals be called in to consider that. There are other reasons we should be very careful in our consideration of this application. We've heard about the rates of suicide from one of our speakers and the lack of background checks for rentals, and our very clear city law regarding the discharge of firearms. About 300 feet from the YMCA and 1,000 feet from our largest school, this use is not compatible with the safety and welfare of these neighbors, as they're telling you already in their resolution. Our vision for the city, as stated in our soon-to-be adopted comprehensive plan, is also a concern. Just one more minute. The Kingston 2025 plan envisions a new core in Midtown Kingston where businesses can take root and grow. It looks to become a mixed-use center with and I'm quoting, multi-family residential incorporated with ground floor retail, pedestrian and bicycle-friendly streets, etc., etc. I'll give you a copy of this. Prince Street is an intersecting network of streets right at the heart of this district. The law may state that until adopted, the comprehensive plan is not law. However, a special permit must be renewed periodically, and it must consider whether a use is in harmony and conforms with the orderly development of a district. So I won't read the rest of this, and I will give it to you. However, what I'm concerned about is that it might be a mistake if other approvals are obtained. Even though I don't believe New York State law does support this under these circumstances, it would be inappropriate to mislead this applicant for a short-term investment if the future of Midtown is not compatible with this shooting range and the future of our zoning will prohibit it. One last thing is I'd like to say that there's just a question about environmental justice, which I think we need to talk about. Anyone who visits Kingston, even for a short time, can see where our investments have gone. For a long time, Uptown Kingston has benefited from its status as a historic, established part of town. Following urban renewal's demolition of downtown, we begin to understand what value remains there, and investments have followed. But Midtown has suffered from economic disinvestment.
If you can wrap that up.
Okay, so I just want to say that environmental justice is the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people in the enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. I urge you to take great care in the interpretation of the zoning and your understanding of the legislative intent of our comprehensive plan, which aspires to help this community's quality of life grow. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Johannes,